Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pop Culture SquadCast. How you doing, Mike?
Doing swell. How you doing, Bob?
I am good. We have a big show. We have a lot of news to get to, some reviews to get to. We have some guests that are going to come in pretty soon. We're going to just move around our format just a little bit tonight because we need to get our guests in and out. But let's start off really quick with some of the news that we got from San Diego this past weekend. San Diego Comic-Con just finished, and it was in. We were talking, and it just feels like there was a lot more news this year, a lot more things being announced. You know, last year was the writer's strike, and that was a big problem. And we had COVID before that, and things, whatever. But like, it was just a lot of big news. I guess it makes sense that people were announcing things beforehand. But anything that strikes your fancy that you want to talk about that we use, because there's some things we want to definitely mention. But
Well, not really.
I
San
mean,
Diego is San Diego, and there's all these announcements, and a lot of it gets lost because there's all these announcements.
there is.
So people start making announcements in advance, which just seems to confuse me more. My takeaway is that DC has a lot of buyer's remorse about their logos, and have decided to go seriously retro, which annoys me. But
Right.
it doesn't bother me. I know lots of people, including my entire career at DC, have a fondness for that logo, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I just like seeing things go forward, not backward, and comics do that too often.
Yeah, so you're talking about the fact that DC has returned to Milton Glazer's Bullet.
Yeah.
And I was at a show this weekend. I was not at San Diego. I was in at GalaxyCon in Raleigh. I happened to be with a bunch of creators at the time when this got announced. And there was some interesting things. Some of the people who were most excited about it were the younger creators who are currently working at DC, and so therefore they like the fact that that's going to be on their books. Otherwise, I understand your concepts about going backwards. One of the other big events of the weekend that we have to mention is there was a lot of big news in at Hall H for Marvel Studios, and talking about going backwards. You wrote an article. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you think that's going backwards?
Well, all right. So the news is, for those people who don't know, we'll say at Hall H they gave us the names for the next two Avengers movies. They are going to be Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. Apparently, it feels like Kang is out the picture and Doom is now the big bad for this next run of Marvel movies. We got First Steps as the name of the Fantastic Four movie with a comic-y accurate Galactus. But the big news was that Dr. Doom is going to be played by Robert Downey Jr., which has lit up the internet, which I guess that's definitely positive because all news is good news. All talking is good talking. You wrote an article, and it's on popculturesquad.com right now for Brainiac on Banjo this week about your opinions on this. Mine, I understand what you're saying. I'm a little different. I feel. All right, we get this. So it's a little confusing to some people. Sherry thinks it's a little confusing, but my take is this, and you can do what you do. It feels very transparent to the fact that there's the stuff that they've put out recently has not done as well as they've expected it to, and they had a problem with an actor, and they're like, well, let's go back to the guy who makes money for us. I don't worry about the fact that it's that one actor can't play multiple characters in the thing. I don't mind that he can't. I don't mind that. My issue is that it feels like, well, it could only make money if Robert Downey Jr. is around.
We're hoping that it makes money with Robert Downey Jr. in it because we enjoy the movies. I even enjoyed the ones that didn't do well, although maybe more or less than others. But the bottom line for me, there's two things for me. The first is that Robert Downey Jr., in my opinion, is one of the finest actors working today.
I do not
I felt that way ever since he started doing Shakespeare, predating Iron Man. Number two, I suspect they will be faithful to the concept in the comics where we never see Victor Von Doom's real face, or at least not after the accident.
I hope that that's the case.
Yes. I hope so too, only because people are going to be waiting for that big reveal. As we've been doing in the comics, those of us who've been reading comics since, Dr. Doom first appeared, forever. So that's good. That could be exciting.
I mean, I agree with you. My issue is that actors like to get paid because people see their face. That's why we have Spider-Man running around with no mask half the time in the movies.
Deadpool.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, Deadpool stays covered. His face stays covered more than most face-covered actors.
Yes.
We had to get the heads-up display so we could see Robert Downey Jr.'s face in Iron Man, right? So, I mean, again, I hope it's good. I'm looking forward to good movies. A lot of people were excited. Some people were not so excited. There's been a bit of the argument should never be, oh, he was one actor, he can't play the other one. He's going to be Iron Man. He's going to be Tony Stark. He can't be Tony Stark. Tony Stark is not Dr. Doom. And they said he's going to be Victor Von Doom. So,
if you forget about Tony Stark,
right,
or at least just don't put that inside your head,
okay,
and you think of Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom, that was his initial casting. This is the first time we've seen him in a Marvel movie, whatever. I think many people who are familiar with his work would say, oh, that's an interesting choice. To see him play the ultimate diplomatic bad guy. I think that's interesting.
I think he's a great actor. I think he'll do a great job acting in there. I don't doubt that. As long as there's a good script and it works out well, and I don't think that they're not going to do that. I feel like it feels like lazy casting. I think that's my point.
I understand that. And given my affection for his work, I got over that instantly.
Sure. I'm not against it. I'm just that's my opinion on it. Hopefully it's good. There's a lot of other stuff we're going to talk about. There was a bunch of trailer stuff that was released. We're not going to talk about some of that. There's a lot of new comic stuff we're going to talk about later. I want to get our guests in as soon as possible because they're not going to have a whole lot of time with us. And it's important. There's a Kickstarter going on right now that we're going to talk about. They're also, obviously, Keith Champagne is our guest. I haven't mentioned that, but he is one of our guests, and he's popped into this conversation. So I'm going to get him in so we can talk about this too. Why not? But before we get to any further down the road, I want to introduce everybody to Keith Champagne. Hey, Keith, and Rich Stahnke is also with us, the colorist on The Jump, which is the new Kickstarter. How you guys doing?
Good. How about you?
That intro was like the best intro I've ever seen for me.
I had no idea Keith had written all those books.
Me neither.
Well, you didn't write them all, but you wrote a bunch of them. I didn't separate the writing versus the inking, but there's a lot. It was hard for me to pick. There was like I have half of them, the ones that I picked there.
Thank you for putting that together. That really was nice to see.
Yeah, it's
deep
been
cuts like I don't even know the name of the zombie book that I did for Dark Horse, the Vengeance one.
Yep.
Like, whoa! I didn't even think anyone knew that book.
Well, I found everything. It's 30 years really since you started working.
My entire adult life has been wasted. Is what my 14-year-old told me not too long ago.
That's fantastic.
I know. Hi, Rich. By the way.
Hey, Keith.
Rich is my dude. He's like the best guy.
Do you guys live anywhere near one another?
No.
No, I'm in Connecticut. And
Keith
Rich
lives
is
near you.
in North Carolina.
Well, that's not that far, but it's more than a
Pretty far.
Pretty far. I was in North Carolina earlier this weekend.
I wanted to drive to North Carolina for the convention from Connecticut, where I also live, and my daughter, who is responsible for my safety and well-being, vetoed that.
Well, she could have offered to drive you down.
Well, we flew. It might have been my last flight. I don't know if I've flown since then. Anyway.
Well,
So,
guys, before we jump in too deep, Mike, I just want to say how much I admire your portfolio of editing work over the years.
Thank you.
Like so many of the books I read as a teenager, into my 20s, were Mike Gold edited books, and I don't think you ever put out a bad book with your name in there, buddy. So
there were a few. I did a lot of books that were very experimental, and occasionally that stuff doesn't work out. And luckily, when I was at DC, my boss was Dick Giordano, and Dick said, if you go through your entire career and there aren't a whole bunch of books that you've done that you wouldn't rather burn, then you haven't taken enough chances. And I agree with that. So I don't look back at that stuff other than to try to learn from it. Why didn't this work out? Usually it's because, the team didn't work out, but, most of it did. So thank you. I really appreciate that. It's very nice.
Can you imagine? I can imagine anyone at DC saying that today, like, "Oh, take more chances. You guys are not being risky enough." It's
Right.
actually going the exact opposite way these days. We're like, let's do the same exact thing over and over again with a new coat of paint. And Bob, I also want to say I'm a big fan of your beard.
thank you.
Just while I'm giving out compliments.
It is. I appreciate that. I understand exactly what you're saying there, Keith, because this is I'm living 14-year-old Bob's dream, every Tuesday night talking to Mike. But I want to talk about you guys.
I have that effect on 14-year-old boys.
Okay, let's keep it legal, all right? So New Pain 2-in-1 is the name of this Kickstarter. We're gonna play the trailer in a minute, but you have this series going called The Jump 1 and 2, or The Jump. The Jump is the name of the thing. The issue 2 is getting kickstarted with this project that just started 3 days ago.
That's like a week ago now. Yeah.
Week.
I think we kicked off week 2 tomorrow. We kick it off.
Awesome. I'm going to I want to play the trailer for folks so they can see what we're talking about here. Let's do this.
Yeah. All right.
So, tell us about this New Pain universe.
Well, I mean, it's very organic at this point. We're still kind of just building it up, making
Taking
it,
risks.
taking risks. Yeah, you know. But I can honestly say I'm having more fun 30 years in doing these books than I have on anything else that I've gotten to work on. And I've been lucky to be involved in some great projects. But I'm at the point in my career where I want to put my effort into myself now, which, you know, I feel like I've earned the right to do that.
You
So we're,
certainly have.
you know, luckily Kickstarter came along. The direct-to-consumer model is, you know, advantageous, I think. And we're seeing what we can build up here over time. Definitely playing the long game. So yeah, the New Pain universe, you know, we have Jump, we have Daybreak, we have a book called Cuda, Microscopic. We have 5 or 6 books out now. You know, Daybreak is our first complete series. Jump is halfway there now. So we're grinding away, getting it done best we can.
And
I have a question that I almost never ask because it's a stupid question. But in this case, it concerns me. Where did New Pain come from?
So New Pain, the name New Pain, is, you know, my partner in New Pain is an inker, an artist, Tom Nguyen, who worked for DC for a long time and now does work in television mostly. So we took, you know, he pronounces his name, usually in Vietnamese it's Nguyen, but he pronounces his name, the Americanized version, Nguyen. So we took the new from Nguyen and we took the pain from Champagne and combined them. And now you have comics that hurt so good.
That's great.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know if it's
good.
very broad, but
That's the marketing
great.
right there.
That's the best origin story I've heard for the title of a publishing house.
And Tom and you guys created the Switch, right? That was one of the first things you guys did together.
yeah,
That
well,
right?
Tom, you know, Tom drew the Black Belt Hamsters book that I wrote
Right.
for Dynamite. He drew
Absolutely.
the Ghostbusters series that the fans just hated,
Sure.
that I did for IDW. And then, you know, he's one of my very best friends, not
Mhm.
just in comics, but, you know, also in life. And so anytime I can work with him, you know, we jump at the chance to work together. And yeah, so the Switch was our first foray into Kickstarter. It got incredibly fucked up. You know, we had no idea what we were doing, and it took Tom 2 years to draw the book, and it was super late. And I didn't know I even how to print the book or anything, so I had Dynamite print it for me overseas and help me get it out there. Thank you, Nikki Barucci, by the way, for that.
Sure.
You know, and then we went away and licked our wounds for a while, and then decided to do it the right way this time. You know, smaller projects, more manageable. You know, we do a Kickstarter, the book ships to the backers within 30 days. All the books are done before the Kickstarter. So there's no delay. We're just trying to build up trust and build up our audience and let them know you're going to get your book like pronto tanto.
We're seeing more and more of that these days. People who are doing Kickstarters after having completed or really close to having completed the book, the work. And I guess that's a good thing because people are concerned that they'll contribute to something that'll never happen. It's remarkable. I don't know how you pay the rent and do that.
I don't either. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm not shy about saying this. You know, I subsidize these books out of pocket and I hope to make my money back.
Right.
I never really do. You know, sometimes I'm lucky to break even. Usually I'll lose a little bit. And everyone else that works on the books gets paid. So, I mean, one of these campaigns, I hope it, you know, goes viral and I make some money back. Because otherwise, you know, I'll need you to pay my rent for me, Mike.
I'm hip. The hardest thing working with smaller publishers, which I enjoy because I I get away with more.
Sure.
You're not just stamping out another, Wolverine comic or what have you. Thing I enjoy the most is that freedom. The price for that freedom is Cockroach Capitalist publishers, who I love, tend to run out of money. And getting paid for one's work is a thing for me. It's a thing for everybody who needs to be paid. But here, you put yourself in that position. You're going to make good on this stuff for everybody, including the reader. So I respect that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm just trying to do it the right way.
Yeah.
I think paid me every day so far.
What's that?
So
He's paid me for everything he owes me so far.
Yeah, so far.
So far.
So Rich, I want to bring you into this conversation. I feel bad about that. So you're doing all of the coloring for a new pain, and you've done a bunch of other stuff as well.
I've colored a lot of stuff for Keith,
Right.
not everything though. But he has been keeping me pretty busy the last couple of years, and I appreciate that.
Sure. What is why comics? What brings you to comics? Why are you doing this? Because there's other places to do things.
Well, yeah. Well, for me, and we're talking about paying the bills and stuff. I'm blessed that I'm retired. This is my second career, so to speak.
That's fantastic.
So I have a pension that I pay my bills with, and I do my comic book stuff because I like it. I'm a lifelong comic book fan. I'm roughly the same age as Keith, and I read first comics when I was young.
You look a lot older.
I do, don't I? It's you know the rough life I've lived, but I'm trying to put that in my past, Keith. Thanks for bringing it up. It hurts, but yeah. So for me, I do this because it's something I like doing. I enjoy it. I've been tinkering with making comics myself for about 20 years, but now that I'm retired, it's now like my full-time job. I get up, putter around the house, and then I come here and sit in my office. I sit in front of the computer and I start drawing, or I write something, or I'm coloring something, or whatever. So I'm not dependent on it to pay my bills, but I'm doing it basically because I like it. But I also like getting paid too. So I invoice Keith when I'm done with jobs.
That's the way to do it.
Great life when you have that safety net.
Oh God, yeah.
The passion that brings you to comics is what makes you an artist. And
I think you're being generous.
I'm a writer in that field.
You're being generous, but yeah, I mean that's when doing like coloring. As I told somebody else I worked with, because he was telling me about how he wanted me to color something versus his partner wanted somebody else to color the same project. And he's like, but I know with you, you're not doing it for the money. So I wasn't in a rush to do 3 pages a day so I could make my page rate and make X amount of money that week to pay my rent. If it took me a day to do a page or 2, I would take the time to do it because I want it to look right. So I have that luxury to I can be more careful or more detailed or fastidious with my work because I'm not in a rush to knock out 10 pages, 20 pages a month or whatever that I need to pay bills because I'm not paying my bills with the work.
Well, that's cool.
I have a different approach. I just don't pay my bills.
So, Keith, you have been doing this your whole life. You went to Kubert School. When did you go to Kubert School? Graduated. I know you graduated in '94. So
yeah, I went from '91 to '94.
Okay. So I lived in Randolph. I went to Randolph High School.
Oh yeah.
So and I lived on that side of town. So Kubert School was on the other side of the mountain, down from where I live. So and I graduated in high school in '90. So I'm actually probably the youngest person on this podcast. It's just the gray that throws it off.
You're distinguished though.
But you immediately started even when you were still at Kubert working at Marvel.
Yeah,
right?
there's no rhyme or reason to it. I was just very lucky. and almost, blind luck, because at the time I broke in so easy that I had no idea how hard it is to break in. People go years and years trying to get work, and somehow I just like Forrest Gumped my way into being hired in the second year at Cuba School, to the point where I was paying classmates to do my homework in my third year so I could do the professional work. So my homework looked a lot better, and I had time to do my actual paying work too. So yeah, I don't know. Like I was very, very so lucky, and didn't even appreciate it at the time, because I just figured this is how it works for everybody. You put some samples together, and then someone likes them, and then they start to hire you, and the next thing you know, you're inking X-Men. So
yeah, that's how it goes.
Right? How stupid was I? I had no idea. But I learned the hard way, kind of in reverse, over the years, what a tough business this is, for sure.
It is show business. It is show business. And for every person who gets in and works like a son of a bitch for 20 years to become the next overnight sensation, there are a few guys who, and generally very talented guys, who are able to get that work pretty early on. You wind up paying your dues anyway. Eventually, you pay those dues.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You don't get around that. Although it's easier to do it if you got the work.
So
I definitely if I look back at my samples from when I broke in, I had no idea what I was doing, but as an inker, I had a nice line, and I think that a lot of times is what people see. They don't see that I don't know how to use that line. They just see, oh, it looks pretty. It's nice and clean. And that got me through the door. And then I've spent the next 30 years trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. And I still don't really quite know. But I keep trying to fake it, and no one's really called me out yet. So I'll just keep doing what I'm doing.
So you've though transitioned into this hybrid writer inker, which is a there aren't many of them.
Yeah, there's Carl Kiesel and Palmiotti, and me.
That's about it.
That's about it, right?
So how does I'm sorry?
Bob Layton.
Bob. Bob's probably the top of the heap on that stuff.
On your writing stuff, you're now, you're kind of creating these characters, and you've done other creator-owned stuff. I have to say I'm a huge fan of The Mighty. I just want you to know
thank
that.
you.
I love that book a lot. I brought it to Pete to sign, and he did not charge me because he liked it that I brought it.
That's nice. We're both really proud of that book. That was a big.
I thought it was great.
We wrote that as a screenplay.
Okay.
And for a while, it made the rounds in Hollywood. It was optioned, and there were people that were going to make it into a movie and stuff, and it all fell apart. And so then we pitched it to DC. At a time when I was doing a lot of writing for DC, and Pete was just going freelance after being an editor. So they're like, yeah, I guess we'll give these guys something to do. And they said yes. And that screenplay became the comic book, which now a lot of people, it was never a huge seller in any of its iterations, but, everyone loves it. So we did something right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what do people are going to expect with what they're going to get in this current Kickstarter, which is issues 1 and it's issue 2 of the Jump, which is this series, and you're also going to get issue 1 with it and the New Pain Who's Who, right?
Yeah. So did you guys read the books that I sent you?
Mike has it, but I did. I read them both.
Mike, you son of a bitch.
Well, it's my fault. I didn't get it to him. I was on a con. It was my fault.
All right, I forgive you. But Bob, you son of a bitch.
That's
I
right.
was sitting around the house looking for something to read, and Bob was out there having this swell time.
Yeah. I would spend a lot of time with Ron Mars, and he says hi. So.
Oh, Ron just texted me. He's got COVID. So
are you kidding me?
No, so if you were just with Ron,
I was with him all freaking weekend.
Yeah, maybe test yourself. He literally texted me as we were going on the air. I got COVID.
That's where's my text? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, well, just wait. A lot of people seem to be coming down on COVID.
There's a real spike right now. Like I know a lot of people coming out of San Diego are sick too.
I'm checking
I
my phone.
was very concerned about. I'm always concerned about San Diego and New York because those are spreader cons. If somebody is sick, it goes around real fast. So I'm real concerned.
Well, we'll be okay. But what's with this story? Tell us about this, because I did read it, and I will tell you, it is a fun read. Both issues. It is misdirection everywhere. Beautifully drawn, beautifully colored, great stories, but like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna latch onto this character. Probably shouldn't do that because something's gonna happen there, and I'll go over here and latch onto this character. Something's gonna happen there. So how do you describe this to somebody?
So I don't really have it broken down into like a Hollywood style log line or anything, but Jump, we call it NPC Jump, which stands for New Pain Challenge. And the New Pain Challenge, which I try to explain on the Kickstarter page, is that every issue of this book ends in a cliffhanger. And that cliffhanger makes it impossible to do another issue.
Correct.
But throughout the issue, there are clues. Like you said, there's a lot of misdirection. There are puzzle pieces. And, it's a challenge to the reader. Can you figure out what we're going to do? Can you figure out how we're going to continue the story? And then if they can, then they become a character in the next issue. So, our hero, Jump, it's his first night in the hero business in issue number 1. And he doesn't make it through that night alive. I mean, he's definitively dead on the last page. But somehow he's back in the second issue. And I can't say how yet because people haven't read it except for you, Bob. But
it's worth the read.
But the second issue ends in a much more dire cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Where it's like, how the heck is the story going to go on from here now? But all the clues are there. If people read it close enough and figure it out, we put it in there. Even Rich, I told Rich how it's going to continue down at Charlotte at HeroesCon a few weeks ago. And it was like a light bulb went off in his eyes when I told him. And to me, it's so obvious. It's like right there in everyone's face. But, I guess people
know how it goes.
Yeah, I guess. Right.
I'm just saying, it's I really enjoy it. I think that you guys, you play with some themes that are well known to, comic book readers, and then turn them on their heads, or slap their hands, and then you want to see how you're gonna solve that, and it's really good. I mean, besides the fact that the writing's pretty good, the dialogue is really excellent in terms of the way that the characters interact. So I fall into this world, and then I get jumped out of it because I'm like, that I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah,
Keith is a master of the blind side.
Yeah,
that's what my wife says on Friday night for sure.
There's a bit in the days of radio drama, which actually even predate me. And if you were writing heroic fantasy serials, like Lone Ranger, Superman for a while, 15 minutes a day, that sort of thing. If your contract was up, you put the character, after about 2-3 weeks worth of effort, into the most horrifying, unbelievable situation from which he could not recover for that last episode on your contract. And then you start negotiations. So, given your skills, when you're not working for yourself, you may want to remember that stuff.
Well, thank you. I will. And Bob, I like what you said about playing with the tropes that come and that people expect from comic books, which is a lot of what I try to do. Is something that Tomasi and I did on the Mighty, for example.
Sure.
And I always try to set up a world to make it feel familiar to people, so they're instantly comfortable with these characters. It's almost reminiscent of books that they've read before. And then you slowly start to turn the screws and, peel the layers of the onion back and sort of like, kick people in the balls, basically, with this stuff. Hopefully they learn to care for the character quickly, and then, it catches them off guard where the story goes.
I mean, the first 5 pages of issue 1, reminded me of another issue 1. Rich used a palette that was reminiscent to comic book readers' memories, and it went completely different than that book did. But like I said, it was, as and I'm gonna put it out there. I mean, like there's 2 characters that look like they belong in another book. It's a father-son relationship. One that are super powered. It's the kid's first night out there, and he's wearing blue and yellow, and the father's wearing red and white. And I don't know.
You know what's funny, Bob, is I never read Invincible.
Well, you should have, because that's what it is.
Yeah, right. I heard that from several people after the.
But the colors match.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I told Keith.
I
was a big fan of Invincible, and I've mentioned that in other interviews. I said, if you're a fan of Invincible, you'll like this book, because it struck me as being very similar in tone. It's sometimes lighthearted and goofy with like a villain that's got a chrome head and a gorilla body, but then very serious things happen to the characters, and nobody's really safe.
Right. I mean, I don't want to spend time, blowing smoke up Robert's ass. So, but it's I just think it was. I like the way that you played with the tropes. I like the way that you played with things like even the romantic relationship between Jump and Amanda, like that kind. A lot of that stuff is there. I like the way that you like. Do you know when you? And I'm going to tell this to people. Like, there's a character in there whose dialogue is not in any sort of English or any sort of language. It's just scratches, it looks like. But do you write the corrected dialogue? Like, do you know what she's saying, or you should say just generally what she's saying?
No, I mean, well, first of all, I think that the readers know what she's saying too, even though they can't understand her.
Yes, which is a fantastic skill. Absolutely.
I feel like that worked out. But no, I know exactly what she's saying. I write all her dialogue out, and then when I letter the book, which is something I really enjoy doing, and I think every writer should try to letter their stuff, because it really sharpens you. It makes you condense your dialogue, and et cetera. So I can go on for hours about that. But when I letter her dialogue, I convert it to this font, this alien font, so no one can read it anymore. But she's having a genuine conversation. I will say, she's the most foul-mouthed character in the history of comics.
Yeah, well, I got that too.
Like,
I'm aware of that, even though I haven't seen a word she said.
Yeah, no. If anyone ever figured out that font and that reverse engineered it, they would blush, because everything she says is so lewd. It's like she's worse than a trucker's trucker.
You touched on a very important point to me. When we were over at First Comics, I had Marty Pasco. I was working with Marty Pasco.
You know what, Mike? Another August 4th birthday right there, Marty Pasco.
That's absolutely true. We can make a list. Barack Obama, Steve Mitchell. In any event, and Keith and me, of course. Marty said, asked me who's going to letter this? And I told him who I had in mind. I mean, we hadn't made the assignment yet. And he said, the choice of a letterer is as important to me as the choice of a penciler, of an inker, is to a penciler. And I thought about that, and I thought, I can understand that. And that's actually a good thing. A writer should have that feeling, that attitude. And you take it one step further in doing it yourself. Now, I realize that we have some computers and stuff that would make even my completely illegible anything worth reading. But and then AI to correct the story. But Marty was right, and I've never forgotten that. Never
for sure,
forgotten.
yeah.
I've always worked with the writer in terms of who was going to letter.
Yeah, I was lucky with lettering in that when I went to the Kubert school, a guy, Hi Eisman, was my lettering teacher. The great Hi Eisman, who's still alive. He's like 99 years old now.
Yeah, he's pushing 100. It's amazing.
He was such a fun guy, but also like a really good instructor. And I have worse handwriting than you, Mike, for sure. I was the worst letterer that could possibly be at the Kubert school. But I did learn the fundamentals of lettering. And then I took Taylor Esposito's lettering course through the Kubert school a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And Taylor has kind of been my lettering, mentor.
Yep.
My Yoda of lettering when I have a question or something like that. But he's, one of the best guys. So, but, he's taught me a lot. I look at Rob Lee's work a lot. Rob Lee is a fantastic letterer.
Also Kubert school graduate.
Yeah, another Kubert school. It's all Kubert school guys. We're the best.
Yep.
So, I pick up tricks and things from what these guys do and try to apply them. But the main reason I started doing it was it was like it really made me focus on my dialogue, on brevity. I would often get a little purple with my stuff, a little too flowery. And, having to actually make my words fit into a panel without covering every character's head was a good exercise in learning how to say less or say more with less, And now it's probably the thing I enjoy the most out of the process.
That's
Although
awesome.
I just started to teach myself how to color now. So maybe that'll take over.
Well, I have a course to recommend.
What's that?
You should take Chris Sotomayor's course.
Yeah, I've heard he does great stuff for that
It's
course.
a great course.
Probably will, yeah.
Yeah. Soto really teaches you. My wife took his course, actually. She was interested in it. And so I kind of audited it. And he really teaches you like theory and the basics, I want to kind of talk on something that Mike brought up, and it was something as I was looking through your career. You have worked with some consistent pencilers, like when you were doing work for hire stuff for other companies as an inker. You worked with Jamal a bunch. Is that something when you work with someone as on multiple things? Is that something that is good for you? How do you feel about that type of work?
Well, I think it's it's definitely good because the more you work with somebody, it's almost like you speak, different languages. And so, like over the course of working with Jamal for a bunch of things, usually it takes about 3 issues, I feel, before we really start to gel stylistically.
Between the two of you, particularly,
yeah,
or
yeah, my comfort level. I've wrote 3 issues. I'm starting to figure out what I'm doing.
okay.
I'm not scared anymore. Hey, Dennis. The longer you can work with somebody, I feel like the better it is for that collaboration, because it becomes an actual collaboration. Whereas like maybe on the first issue over somebody, I'm really tracing more than I'm inking because I'm just trying not to screw it up. But then the second issue, I'm feeling a little more comfortable, starting to flex a little bit, maybe adding some texture to the backgrounds or whatever, and then by the third issue, I feel like the training wheels are off. I know how this guy thinks. I know what I can do to make him look good. And then it just grows from there. Like Leonard Kirk was a good example of that. I worked with Len for, 20, 25 issues.
Right.
And even I think my work doesn't suck by the end of that run, which I almost never say, but I got to, and I've worked with great guys like Monkey is the best guy and the best artist. Pascal Ferry, another guy I really love to work with. Like I've gotten to work with some real geniuses and learned a lot just from seeing how they approach the page too, which helps my storytelling as a writer, all kinds of ways.
Working with another question I had is kind of like, as you made the transition to being able to write comics, not that you couldn't, but like writing for DC, you did a bunch of that. Was there any particular relationship that really helped give you the pieces that you felt would work there? Like,
Yeah, I think I owe a lot. Well, first of all, I owe a lot to my Forrest Gump way of going about my career.
sure,
And just
I
thinking,
listen.
of course they're going to let me write. Why wouldn't they let me write something?
Well, listen. When I was making that video and I was going through all of this stuff and I was preparing, I'm like, that's the perfect way. Like this guy, it's just it is. It's like it goes like, all of a sudden we're gonna run this way, and okay, let's go back this way, and how about over here? And it's all good. It's all good. So
Thank you. Yeah, but I mean, on an individual basis, I owe Pete Tomasi a lot.
sure.
Tomasi, brought me on to Starman. I did a run on Starman, and I hadn't really known him before that, but we clicked as friends, like, really fast, and he became one of my favorite people. So he was, I think, I was inspired by him because he was always writing screenplays. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a screenplay. I think I could do that too. So he really kind of took me under his wing and gave me a little mentoring, and then gave me a lot of confidence that I could do this. So when I had my first son and my wife stopped working for a few years, I was like, shoot, I better find a way to make more money because like this inking stuff, doesn't always pay the bills. So that's when I really started trying to crack into DC as a writer. And Tomasi, I feel like he could have gave me work a lot sooner than he did as a writer. I'll be honest with you. He didn't just roll over and be like, okay, here, write everything. Because actually my first work was for a different editor at DC, and then I wrote an issue of Legion for Steve Wacker. And then finally, Tomasi let me write a couple of fill-in issues, one of which was a Green Lantern Corps arc with some Black Ops Green Lanterns that really pissed Jeff off. But, but then the Green Lantern Corps, the schedule was so terrible on that already, so early in the run, that he was like, hey, we're going to use this stuff. I got to plug it in. And then luckily, like, people really liked it. And then suddenly I was off to the races. I was like a real writer at DC. But yeah, no, so Pete Tomasi is my main guy, long story short. I could have said that a lot shorter. I should talk the way I try to letter my comics and break it down.
That's great. That's great. So as where you are now, right, with the project that you're doing, New Pain, and how that works out, you are the story guru behind this universe that you're creating. Is there going to be a connection between these universes that you're creating, or these stories, or will there ever be? Are you gonna Marv Wolfman yourself and do a crossover here?
Yeah, well, hopefully I won't spill oatmeal on myself the way that Marv did. You know that story, Mike?
No, I was laughing at Bob's. I was appreciating Bob's reference.
Yeah, no, there's already little crossovers. There's a character in Daybreak, a villain that appears in the Switch book, and there's some references to different characters in these different books.
So they're living in the same universe.
Yeah,
and listen, I'm not encouraging you to take that on. You get there when you're ready, but just the concept of that, you are right. The stories that you're writing in this New Pain, imprint exist at the same place in the same space is cool, right?
Yeah, but I don't want it to ever be something that it's like restrictive or constrictive to the characters of the story or the universe.
Right.
If it makes sense for one character to pop into another character's book, then we have the freedom to do that. And if not, then we don't. But Daybreak is going to cameo in the third issue of the Jump if we are able to make the third issue of the Jump, for sure. And you kind of start to see the connective tissue a little bit more, which is structured in a different way than just like these guys are all running around on Earth Prime. It's it's a bit different than that.
Right. So coming back to Rich just for a sec, like here, how as you get what do you get as a colorist? Do you get the pages, but you get scripts with it that come through?
Oh, yeah. Keith.
That's really important because there's a lot of times where, and for you, Keith, like there's a lot of times where, and I've had these conversations with Soto particularly, that a lot of times colorists don't get the script; they just get the black and whites and go figure it out.
I don't know how anybody would effectively do a color job not knowing what the script actually says. I mean,
Sure.
If you don't have direction on what time of day it is, what are the conditions that the characters are in, you need to know that stuff. So
Sure.
Keith usually will send me, it's, as Keith will tell you, his scripts are not finalized necessarily until he's sitting down probably doing the lettering, and even then I think he changes some stuff. But he sends me a script, and he forwards me the pages as they're available, and so I knock them out as they come in. Sometimes they're in order, sometimes they're not, but I don't mind that at all. But yeah, I mean, I get the script, and I appreciate having the script. Like I said, I don't know how anybody else would color not having that information available. It seems to me like that a lot of stuff might get screwed up, and then in the end, that just creates more work. If there's nothing to lose by sharing that information with the colorist down the line, so they know what they're working with.
Well, you don't know how the jump's coming back.
And I know how the jump is going, yeah. And if somebody backs this campaign and gets one of they pick up the handbook, you're talking about the interconnectivity. I know Keith shared one or two of the entries with me already. There is some Easter egg stuff in the entries in the handbook that show you, that start to connect those dots between a character from this title over here, and they have a history that will tie them to a future book that's going to be coming out from New Pain.
A book that Rich has done the full art for too, in color.
Awesome. Mike, you were going to say something.
Yeah, back when you guys were learning how to walk in the early 70s, Neil Adams took it upon himself, as any good activist would, to, at every convention he would be on a panel on, to complain vociferously about colorists who don't read the story before they color the story. And finally, he got around to saying, well, that's because they don't get copies of the script. So why don't the editors give you a copy of the script? Well, you got to ask, blah, blah, blah. All right, all these young people like me, I was young then, were listening to Neil because it's Neil Adams. And when we became editors, would always send the script to the colorists. And I'll tell you one story. I've said it here before. Bob can probably tell it better than I. When we were working on The Question, which was a wonderful series, Tatiana Wood, who's one of the greatest colorists of all time, Tatiana would go over the script with me. She'd come into my office, go over the script with me, panel by panel, ask questions about what was going on. She wanted to make sure she didn't misunderstand. And there weren't a lot of comics like The Question in those days, so I get that. But her dedication was amazing. She could have colored 2 or 3 pages while we were having these conversations, right? And her I really understood what Neil was talking about working with Tatiana. And it helped make The Question an even better book, and we had a magnificent team on that book. So,
well, that's probably my favorite DC book of all time.
Really?
Yeah, The Question. I love The Question.
Oh,
There was a point in time when that book was firing on all cylinders, and you were doing like team ups in the annuals with Batman and I forget what it was, but it was like, yeah, and it was like, whoa, I could not get enough of that stuff at that point in time. And then you got Dennis, who's such a maverick artist and always has been, but perfectly complemented by Magyar on that stuff.
Absolutely. Dennis has a dedication to whatever he does that is almost spiritual.
And he's a cool dude.
Oh, he really is.
He knows it.
I love working with him. I love him personally. And mostly when we get together, we talk about music.
So we do have a question from the audience, and it's
What do we
for
got?
Rich.
Ooh.
How would you handle it if you don't agree with the direction on coloring? Like, have you ever had that experience where you read the script and you're like, I don't know.
I've never had really a disagreement with Keith. I mean, Keith has been, for me,
You can tell us.
fantastic
You
to
can
work
tell us.
for
It's all
because
right.
Keith has been really good. I mean, he generally just kind of turns me loose. Every once in a while he'll give me a note, alter the background a little bit in a panel to make the character pop a little more or whatever. But generally, he's been really great to work with. So I haven't had to deal with that with Keith. I was working on another project with somebody else, and I had to leave the project because I was just getting jerked around in different directions with. Well, it was mainly due to multiple people giving me direction, but so I had to just step away. I was trying my best to do what they were telling me to do. I didn't. It's your job if you're being paid to color the pages, it's your job to do it. So if somebody says do it X, Y, or Z, then that's what you need to do. You can bite your tongue if you don't think it looks good. It's not your book. It's work for hire. But I left that one just because I felt like I was being pulled by different people giving input and nitpicking a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah,
So,
comics is a collaborative medium, and
Yeah.
when people involved in it can't collaborate, which doesn't happen anywhere near as often as one might think, it falls apart. It's that much of a collaborative medium. You want to do your job, but if you're torn in too many different directions, nobody can do that job.
Well,
it worked. It was a blessing for me in disguise because I left that, and that actually freed up my schedule. And that I ended up doing a lot more work with Keith, and that's just been a blessing to go.
Well,
project.
I'm clearly the best guy in the entire industry, so
What's that?
I'm the top of the mountain over here for sure.
Oh yeah, so it all worked out for me. I'm working with the guru.
I know you guys have a hard stop in a couple of minutes, but I do want to remind everybody that in the chat, wherever you're watching this, and if you haven't subscribed to wherever you're watching it, please do that. But in the chat, wherever you're watching this, the link to the campaign is available. It is there are 23 days to go in the new Pain 2-in-1 NPC Jump 1 and 2 and the new Pain Handbook. That is quite a mouthful, but anyway, there's 23 days to go in this project, and we want you to get it because I have read issue 2, and everybody needs to read issue 2 because if you thought issue 1 was crazy, it gets even better.
Yeah, it gets turned up to 11.
Well, I'll send it to you now. You can read them tonight.
See, we still have that little fanboy inside of us. Now, that little
Right.
fanboy has been paying the rent for decades. So I don't ignore that little fanboy.
Yeah, and the campaign itself, we're just about $400 shy of being funded at this point.
Mhm.
So I feel
You're gonna
good.
get there.
We're going to hit the goal. We got 23 more days.
I want stretch goals galore.
Oh yeah, no, we have this.
I'm
I
sure
find
there
the
are.
best way to approach stretch goals is to use them to add more content to the books.
Sure.
I think prints and everything are fun and people like them, but for me, I want to read more shit.
Right.
Give
I agree
me
with you,
more
100%.
stuff in the book. I'd rather have that than
I don't know what I'm going to do with a print. I only got so much wall space.
Yeah, right.
And shelf
I have
space.
a pile of prints right about 2 feet from my left shoulder from Kickstarters, and I love them. Some of them are absolutely fantastic, and I have no idea what to do with them.
Yeah. But anyway, I do feel good at this point. Knock on wood, because I'll probably jinx everything. But I do feel that we're going to be able to do the third issue of Jump. I think this one's going to pay for itself, and we'll be able to, to continue the story.
Oh yeah.
If you think number 2 got crazy, we're just warming up for number 3.
Well, when that happens, you'll be back and we can talk about that and we'll go from there. Because absolutely, you're always welcome.
One warning, and I know the clock is running down. We had this approach on Wasteland over at DC, John Ostrander and I. where each issue we tried to up the ante, make these stories a little bit scarier, a little bit closer to the heart, a little bit more frightening than the previous. And I canceled the book, not DC, after 18 issues, which was longer than I thought we'd get away with, for one reason only. We got to the point where it took John as long to write one story. We had 3 stories per book, as it did for him to write a whole issue of Suicide Squad or Firestorm or whatever. And he was starving to death writing some of the best stuff in his career to that date. So sooner or later, it's like, wow, okay, if I'm going to top this and not be thrown in jail or fired, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time working on this. So now you're going to starve to death. So don't starve to death.
Well, I'm trying not to. And I would like to say what a fan of John Ostrander I am. You know, one of the best to ever do it.
Yep.
And a lot of his best stuff, you know, was clearly through DC. But I got to co-write a shitty project at DC with John. And the only good thing about it was working with John. You know, like what a dream come true that was. But yeah, I remember Wasteland very fondly too. That's another gem.
We met in 1971 at a party, and it was one of the most fortuitous moments in my life. And I'm the one who invited him into the comics business. He wanted to be a comic book writer. He was already a successful stage writer, playwright, and also actor. I destroyed all that and put him into comics.
Well,
and he got a job on the Suicide Squad, so it's okay.
Yeah, no, that worked out okay for him.
Yep.
Well, guys, listen, I'd love to come back on when I have more time just to sit here for hours and go deep.
You're always welcome. We'll figure it out. We'll get that up. And again, you know, we will we'll be talking about, you know, getting this over the hump and into stretch goals, because this project is really good and you guys are doing a great job. We really appreciate you coming on. We really appreciate you guys you know, committing to the comic form. So yeah.
Thank you. And, you know, it's validating to me that you liked it, because we make these books ahead of time in a vacuum, and I have no idea if it's going to be good or not. But you know, it's nice that it's doing what I want it to do.
Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys being here. We're gonna let you go.
Very much.
Talk to you again.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thanks.
All right. Don't go anywhere, folks. We have a lot more to talk about, but that was great. We are
one of the coolest things for me personally about doing these SquadCasts. We've been giving a lot of promotional support to a lot of Kickstarters.
Yes.
That are all worthy. And anything we can do, I can do, to help those efforts, because that's the future of comics. Not Kickstarter per se, not crowdfunding per se, but people doing what they want to do, their own passion in this medium, unrestricted by publisher financial whims.
Right. I mean, I agree with you, and we have you know, some of the people we've had on the show, and if you go back and check our archives, if you're new here, you know, go back, check the live archives. We've done a bunch of Kickstarters. We'll continue to have those people on, but some of those people afterwards have come up to me and said, you know, they really appreciate, you know, what we've done for them. You know, having them on, being able to talk about their stuff, they feel like it made a difference, and that just makes me feel great. You know,
it makes me feel so bad that after all this time I've been bouncing so many checks on Dean Haspiel. Well,
yeah, I get that. All right, so where do we want to do this? I think right now I want to come back to the couple of things that I want to talk still about what came out of San Diego, because one of the things that was very interesting that I liked is, I don't know how this is going to work out. I'm excited about it, but there are 3 new comic book entities that came out, or more, 3 or more, maybe more, that are trying to make new comics, trying to make some comics that are not Batman, Superman, Iron Man. And I'm excited about that. Let's see, where do we have them? There's one of them is an old friend of ours that is starting his own line, Amazing Comics, which is going to be shepherded by Joe Quesada at Mad Cave. Mad Cave is going to do the printing, and it's going to be Joe Quesada's story. I'm excited about that. There's a cover. Let's see if I can find that cover. Here it is. This is the cover to Disciple issue 1. It's first look. I think the first look is actually going to be at New York Comic Con, but we have it's Joe Quesada with Charlie Dorfman, Wade von Grabiger, and Richard Eisenhoff. So I'm excited to see Joe tell stories.
Me too. And again, that freedom that you get by doing your own thing is breathtaking. What I like about this line that he's launched, it's a tribute to Amazing Stories, the first science fiction pulp magazine. It wasn't their first logo, but this is sort of a modernization of what I think was by far their best logo.
I agree with you. I caught that. I got that same. I didn't even put it together, but like it felt the logo. It felt homey to me. Like it was like something that it hit me. I want to just say to people what Joe said about it. He said, "Amazing Comics has been percolating in my head since 2005. I knew a day would come when I could make it a reality, but when I did, I promised myself not to rush into anything. Be patient and thoughtful, and always remember that I've been well served in my 30 plus years in comics by choosing the road less traveled. So here we are." And I'm all about that.
There you go. He used to do a lot of convention appearances. He and Jimmy both in this area, and we got to be pretty good friends during that period. Haven't seen much of him lately, which I understand. And I'm so happy for him. It's a shame I wasn't in San Diego or any place where I could actually tell that to him. So in the ether here, good luck, pal. That's great.
Another comic company that was announced that's starting is something called Panic Entertainment. I'm excited about this, mostly because I have some friends involved in this. You do too. The CEO of Panic Entertainment is Chris Longo. Chris Ryle is the executive editor, I believe. I don't remember exactly what his title, but Chris Ryle is going to be the editor of this. Bart Sears is involved in this project. Shannon Eric Denton is involved in this project. Dirk Blackman, and the first book is going to be written, or at least co-written, by David Dasmalchian, who is writing Count Crowley at Dark Horse. Also was in the Suicide Squad and Ant-Man and stuff like that.
I worked with Chris over at IDW. We did a few books for them.
Right.
And I had the privilege of, hanging out in his office in San Diego without, this big, huge convention around.
Yes. Your favorite time at San Diego is when there's no convention.
When I can just go to In-N-Out Burger. Yes, that's right. That's it. But I really enjoyed working with him. I enjoyed our telephone conversations. I have a sort of a personal stake. I tend to have a personal stake in all the stuff because, I know too many of these guys. But Chris, good for you, pal. After all the jerking around and that goes through this industry all the time, pick it up, do it on your own, do it your way.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. Chris Longo is something I know that he's excited to do this in this way. Bart Sears is going to be good to see him get back into doing some work we can buy. That's great. the other announcement that came out of San Diego is something I want to talk about, and I'm very intrigued by what this is. Scott Dumbier, who had been at IDW for quite some time, left, and he started his own publishing company called Act 4, which I love the concept behind it. And they're going to be doing, he's going to be doing a lot of, and Scott had done a lot of, artist edition type stuff where it's archival comic stuff. And some of the things that he's already talked about are next level. So there's going to be, I'm pretty sure this is his, it's Wallywood's EC Stories, the artist edition. Like some of these books that he's talking about, like they're just going to be treasures,
just like most of his career. I mean, here
right.
I'm just shining up on everybody tonight, but these are really good people, really talented people, and people who have earned a pedigree in this medium. I am always excited to hear that Scott is doing anything new.
Well, the thing about what
happens,
the thing that he's doing is he's really, and I think he's shining spotlights on people who haven't gotten it the right way. So this is going to be one of the books that's coming out. It is the connoisseur edition of Darwin Cook's The Spirit. So it's not, it's based on the works of Will Eisner, of course, right? But it's when Darwin was working on The Spirit, and it's collecting all of that together. And I think that's something that I didn't know how much I wanted.
That's a good way of looking at it. You did notice the juxtaposition between two of the finest spirit artists who ever existed, whose names were not Will Eisner,
right?
In Wallywood and Darwin Cook,
right? Well, there's also this one, which I mean, just Jim Apparo's DC Artist Edition book collected. Again, this is another thing that's like, I know that we've had these conversations. Everyone hits comics at different times, but Jim Aparo was like my first Batman artist. Like he's Batman is, if you show me a character that Jim Aparo drew, I'm like, oh, it's Batman. That's just my Batman.
There are so many brilliant Batman artists over the last 80 years that it almost hurts to say, well, this guy, because there are like 5 other guys who are just as important.
Of course.
But Jim Aparo is one of those guys.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
I would love to see them do a book of his stuff from Charlton, except I don't think you can print those artist editions off register the way Charlton did. So I don't know how you do that.
Well, so we've talked about Panic, we've talked about Act 3, we talked about Amazing Comics. I think those are the 3 new companies that debuted. We've talked about the return of the Bullet. There's a bunch, like DC had a lot of good stuff going on that did come out. We talked about the All In last week a little bit. I don't really want to talk about that here, but we do know that part of the new launch that's happening and everything's changing in October, we're going to get new comics, and getting new comics is good. Justice League is coming back. Mark Waid is writing Justice League Unlimited with an interesting shock. What
a shock.
Well,
if you were at DC, who would you talk to about bringing back the Justice League? To Mark Waid.
One of the things that I liked about what Mark said is that he's going to use it to highlight the non, big 3, the other ancillary characters, and kind of tell their stories and advance them. The initial cast has Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Flash, the Atom, which I believe is Ryan Choi, but I'm not 100% sure, and Captain Atom, and somebody else. I can't remember who it is. Oh, Star Sapphire, because something happens to the lanterns. So lanterns are a problem. But also Black Lightning, which is good to me, in my opinion.
Well,
Um,
Black Lightning deserves a stable place in the DC universe.
Yes. But also the Justice Society is returning. The JSA is returning, and Jeff Lemire's writing it. And I am very excited about it. It is.
Will the current miniseries be finished by then?
It will never be finished. It is. I've only read, I think, 2 issues because my shop doesn't. I don't even know if they order it anymore because nobody knows. So I have to go find the rest of it. But yeah, I don't. Wherever it is, I think it's done because I think it's November or I don't think it's October, but it could be November. We're gonna get Justice Society. The other one,
it's a story that the current story is one that does not work well with these infinite delays.
right?
And that's unfortunate, but read the trade paperback. It'll be out probably before the last issue.
Yeah. Probably the most interesting thing out of DC in terms of what they announced comic wise was this one, which there's going to be a New Gods ongoing. It's going to be written by Ram V, and Evan Cagle is going to be doing the art. This is a Pete Woods cover, which is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a Fourth World fan, and a New Gods ongoing is for the first time in a really long time. I like the concept of letting the New Gods stories be told as something other than an antagonistic, problem.
Yeah, and it's also nice to see some of the religious right have a brand new opportunity to lose their shit.
Yes.
I always enjoy
that. I love that. We're going to get into that part because we are getting to Deadpool and Wolverine. So just hang on. We are going to come into that. We're going to talk about it. We've both seen it. We have a new graphic that we're going to put up, and you can see. But we're going to get to that, and I think that conversation is going to come in there a little bit. We talked about the Marvel stuff. The only other Marvel thing that is important to me that came out of San Diego is that there's going to be a new Laura Kelly Wolverine story, ongoing series. I'm a big fan of that character. I don't know why, but I am a big fan of that character. And Erica Schultz is writing it, and I like Erica Schultz a lot. So
yeah, me too.
So we have known for a little bit that Dynamite has some Warner Brothers licenses, right? We know that they
have some Disney licenses.
Yeah,
there's a crossover.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. But Thundercats is out there. Space Ghost is out there. Next month in August, which is in 2 days, we're gonna get Johnny Quest. But it was announced that they're also going to have comics coming out from Ben 10, Captain Planet, the Herculoids, Dynamite and Blue Falcon, and for the first time ever in comics, Thundar the Barbarian.
Ah, really? The first time?
First time. Never been a Thundar the Barbarian comic.
A story in one of those Gold Key anthologies, maybe?
Gold Key anthologies? No, it didn't start till the 80s.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm thinking. I'm just dabbling here.
Yeah, no. It's I'm gonna check it. I'm checking the thing. But yeah, well, Steve Gerber created him in the 80s. There wasn't any Gold Key stuff there. What's interesting is that Ben 10. Ben 10 was created by comic guys. One of them is already writing one of the Warner Brothers Hanna-Barbera stories in Joe Casey. It's going to be good. The first book that's coming out that's of that group will be the Herculoids, written by Tom Snagowski, who is a pretty good writer. I like him a lot.
Remind me what he has written.
He has written a lot of the Hellboy stuff.
Ah, okay.
He wrote the Craig Rousseau, Young Hellboys, and a bunch of the other, Mignola. Like, there's a lot of Hellboy. Like,
Right.
Mike keeps himself, printing stuff, which I have no problem with. But so that was one of the big things. There's another piece of information that I want to share. And this one we're gonna probably at some point talk about on the show with a guest or two, because it's a friend of the show, and that is we'll share this out here for you guys so you can take a look at it.
Ooh,
Angry Birds, right? We have now found out that Angry Birds is partnering with Rocket Ship Entertainment to make middle grade graphic novels. There's going to be a series of 3 graphic novel length stories that are going to be written by Paul Tobin with art by Tom Zoller. There are going to be young reader comics released in 2025 written by Katie Cook. So the 3 graphic novels planned so far are The Haunting of Hog House, Level Up, and Breaking the Bank. So these are going to be kickstarted and then offered through other purchase with merchandise and stuff like that. This is a collaboration between the Angry Birds people and Rocket Ship Entertainment, which is Tom Akel, which we like him, and I'm excited for that stuff. That I've kind of known about. That's like stuff I've known about for a while, and now everybody else can know.
Well, I'm just amazed at the success in various media of Angry Birds. I never would have guessed when it first came.
Of course,
and that's kind of cool just to see, like, wow, they're doing what?
Exactly. I don't have a graphic for it, but we're going to talk about it. The last bit of news that I want to talk about, San Diego, and we're just scratching the surface. There was unbelievable amounts. Did you see the Creature Commandos trailer?
I haven't seen the trailer.
You got to watch the trailer.
I know. I'm looking forward to it.
It's good. It's good.
The ballsy move is that the big relaunch that everybody except the accountants are lusting for DC TV and movies is starting out with that, and I love that the fact that that's such,
it is good. It is the trailer looks fun. It is well set up, and once you watch that trailer, you're like you are even more invested in what James Gunn is trying to do. And that wasn't the thing I want to talk about. I just caught my head. Like I said, there's so many things. The last piece is that Dynamite, besides taking over those Hanna-Barbera stuff, has a new James Bond story coming out. Did you see who's writing it? Are you excited about it?
Well, I am. I'm weirded out by all these great writers doing their James Bond story, but there are all these great writers doing their James Bond stories, so I should be happy. That's a good idea. But this one has a real twist to it in terms of the casting decision.
Sure.
And I didn't realize that James Bond had something in common with Red Sonja.
Yeah. Well, they're both written by a redhead. And Gail Simone is going to be writing James Bond. Gail Simone is also currently writing X-Men. Gail Simone is also currently writing Action Comics. Gail Simone also has a novel coming out about Red Sonja, which is the first time in a really long time. And
Do you know whether Lisa Simpson is in any of these stories?
I don't know that Lisa Simpson is in any of them. I'm hoping that Scandal Savage might be somewhere around because that's what. But it is. I'm excited for her. I'm excited to see her take because she's a great writer. She's just a great writer.
She really is. I made that joke about, well, it probably wasn't a joke, about Lisa because one of the first things that Gail did was she wrote the Sunday Simpsons newspaper strip, which scared a lot of like normal people when it was run in newspapers, because I infer that they had never seen The Simpsons and weren't prepared for that. But I thought it was, at the time, it was an impossible job. How do you do a Sunday strip on The Simpsons capturing what makes The Simpsons unique at the time? And Gail did just that.
Yeah.
And of hers ever since.
Yeah. I could spend a couple hours talking about what I feel about Gail Simone, and it's all good. But that was great news. She seemed to have a good time because she's, lets everybody know what's going on the socials. She seemed to be in positive spirits, and I like that.
Let me make a plug here for Gail. It's Deuce. It's not a plug. Gail, 10 years ago, maybe longer, we did this fundraiser for John Ostrander. For eye surgeries. He had 3, and we raised a lot of money for that. I'm very proud of that. The woman who was the HBIC of Pop Culture Squad was part of that process, and Gail did phenomenal work. She was literally all in on that fundraiser.
Yep.
John, and every opportunity I get.
Yep. She's a wonderful person besides being a fantastic writer.
Right.
I think it's time to talk about the Merc with the Mouth. And so I want to let everybody know, spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about this. You can turn it down. We'll let you know if we're going to be whatever, but we're going to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear your opinions. So please put them in the comments if you're there. But we have both seen this movie. Well, tell the folks what you thought of it, Mike.
Well, first of all, I want to compliment the people who made this movie for being exactly what superhero movies in general and Marvel movies in particular needed at the exact right time. Which was
I feel you on that. Yep.
Which was not a great superhero movie, but a great fun experience in a superhero movie. If you're going to get all tied up in continuity and stuff, well, it doesn't really violate continuity because, multiverse. But it's fun. At no point in time was I bored. I was amazed at how fast the runtime went. Just astonishing. It was hilarious. The electricity between the two leads, which was always visible in short form, really worked out over the course of a 2+ hour movie, and that is very hard. That is not something that you see very often. So it is beautiful to watch. The cameos are just enormous fun. If you think there's too many cameos, you've missed the point. You've totally missed.
I can't imagine people. I've seen some negative reactions, and those negative reactions are usually related to people saying that, oh, well, it's not. There's no stakes. It's just fan service. Good.
It's bullshit. We, after all of these Marvel movies and all these multiverse type of movies and all this other stuff, There's no concept there that a person who's likely to spend, I don't know, what is it, $25 or $50 or whatever for a ticket to that movie, there's nothing that's going to go over their head. They may not want to have to pay attention, but if that's the case, then don't go see the movie. All movies require your attention.
No, I agree 100%. I'm gonna, the story is clear. It is, the world needs to be saved. It's in danger, and these idiots, or this idiot, says I gotta try and save it, and I'm gonna do the weirdest things possible to go find it.
And they're going to rip off a couple of storylines, not rip off, but follow a couple of storylines from the TV work.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, I love the fact
when they do that, and I know that James Gunn is trying to capture that ambience over at DC, which is what the original DC movies lacked. It is one Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And Deadpool is Marvel Jesus. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm sure that helps a lot of people.
We're going to come back to that whole right-wing people getting up. Like, that was one of the things. Like, there was a thing online. I don't know how real it was or if somebody just made it up, but like, there was a thing that somebody was offended because they took their children to see it and it was blasphemous in like the first 5 minutes. I'm like, it's a Deadpool movie. Why are you taking a kid?
Yeah, there's a reason why that was the first R-rated Disney movie.
Yep.
And by the way, within 5 minutes, you knew it was the first R-rated. There were 100 R-rated Disney movies.
I think I need somebody to count the fucks in that movie, because
I told Adrian after the movie, I said I didn't clock it, but I think there were still more fucks in your average episode of Doom Patrol. So get over it.
Oh, I don't know about that. There was, fuckity McFuck or something like that going on in this one. It was.
Yeah, but Robot Man did a lot of that too.
Oh yeah, he was good. I can't argue with that. But let me tell you, here's a great story, and we're in spoiler territory. So folks, I hope you go watch the movie. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to say something that happens in the movie, and I want people to be aware of it. But if you have watched the movie, please let us know. And if you give us another 2 minutes, I'll take the spoiler alert off. We won't do any more spoilers. But I was spoiled to the Chris Evans thing. And I was spoiled that I knew who he was playing.
Right.
And while he did a great job, and it was hilarious, it was well done, I think it hurt not that it hurt the experience. I would have liked to have enjoyed that without knowing that he was Johnny Storm in that moment.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean that's the problem with spoilers.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying, like, I normally don't care about it. I'm like, that's fine. I don't care, whatever. I'll watch it, whatever. It doesn't bother me. I don't get upset about it. But in that moment, that's like one of the first times I've ever said, I wish I wasn't spoiled to that.
I get that. I understand that. And I agree with that. If for no other reason than the fact that stuff justified the greatest post-credits scene in any Marvel movie for me personally. Absolutely. My God, that movie ended spectacularly, and that's all on Chris.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, it was great. And
great. We're not going to spoil that part of it.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna spoil that part. I'm gonna one last thing, and then I'll take the spoiler one. We'll talk about it more really. But my other thing and I said this earlier, I really enjoy the character of Laura Kinney. I've always liked the character. I think Chris Yost and Craig Kyle, when they created her, did a great thing, and I think they used her well. And I think she's grown in the Marvel universe. Although over the last year, things have gotten very crazy, and you can thank Marvel Jesus or somebody that you have not been reading X-Men books because I missed stuff and I went and Wikipedia'd it, and it's the new X-Men starts clean. So she's got a new book coming out, but the fact that Daphne Keane came back to play her and had such a great important role in the movie.
And when she was introduced perfectly.
Oh yeah.
It was like, here's this scene with Hugh Jackman that's just going to just make you rise up and cheer.
Yep, it was great. I'm taking the spoiler off. We're going to stop talking about spoilers, and we're going to talk about just because we're professionals and we don't have to spoil things. We're back.
Yeah, but I'm also a prick.
Yeah. Well, listen, we got a new logo. I'm trying to work on some other stuff. We're playing with this thing. This is our 49th episode of Pop Culture Squad Live. Next week is our 50th episode. And we have a super, super special guest that I'm very excited about. For our 50th episode since it's historic, it is only appropriate that it is Karen Green.
Absolutely right.
And so she will be our guest next week. But back, talking about the movie, I think here, and this is what I said to you earlier, and this is how I think about it. I don't need to go into a film and sit there and spend my money and sit there for a couple of hours to be entertained and worry about how everything that happens and all the plot points will play into the next movie or come from the previous movie or all of that, and get worried and upset because it changed directors and they didn't do something differently, or I thought it was going to go this way, and I don't want to be upset, and I don't want to direct somebody else's movie and get upset that they didn't do it the way I just want you to I want to sit there. I want you to tell me your story, and I want to be entertained. And if you throw me some cameos or some Easter eggs that are funny, like Rob Liefeld can't draw feet, I love it. Like you want to make fun of the fact that Daredevil and Elektra got married in real life and now they're divorced, and she's like, it's fine, he's dead. Hilarious.
That was one of the funnier moments in the movie. Spoiler alert. But it's that's the movie. I mean, you're gonna make it's a Deadpool movie.
Yes, and Ryan Reynolds. I mean, I can't say enough about how he has been able to take this character and become it in the film. Like the character of Deadpool has never been one of my favorites, and it's still like, I mean, I enjoy these movies and they're fun to watch, but like it's still not my favorite character in any way. But he is Deadpool. Like if
he were to stop making or appearing as Deadpool in the Deadpool movies, and sooner or later he will probably age out of that. Maybe not. I still want him to promote those movies. I want him to be promoting Deadpool movies forever. I want him in the beer commercials.
Well, the good part is, like, as I said, Deadpool wears a mask most of the time. He doesn't have to stay, super fit and doing the things he did. So he can play Deadpool for a while.
Yes, he can.
But I don't know that I need another one. I didn't, I'll take it if it's at this level, absolutely. But again, there are other ways to tell stories. There are going to be new movies with superheroes in them. There's going to be new TV shows with superheroes in them, and these are the things we all grew up. They ignited our fantasy.
Just as everybody was hanging out in San Diego spreading COVID, James Gunn had just wrapped on Superman, the movie.
Right.
And that will either be the greatest game changer in superhero movie history or the biggest disappointment. And and he knows that he's put himself on the line for.
Oh yeah,
and I respect that.
I do too, and I feel the same way. I'm excited about the things that I've learned about it, but to be honest with you, I don't want to see another trailer for that movie. I just want to go next June or whatever it is, or July. I just want to sit in the theater and watch it. I don't want to know anything else about it. I don't want to know who's in it. I don't want to know what they're. I just want to go and watch and enjoy that movie.
I understand that, but given what we do, that's going to be hard to pull off.
I know.
I feel that way about everything. I stopped reading screenplays of movies I want to see and will see anyway, for that very reason. Of all the trailers to come out of San Diego, there were quite a few, and I've seen a lot of them. The 2 Star Trek trailers that came out, I thought were by far the most compelling.
My God. You like them?
Oh yeah, I like the trailers.
So which are we talking about here? The Strange New Worlds one?
The Section 31 movie.
Okay.
Which they've been setting up for about 30 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And
I didn't see it. I haven't seen these trailers. I didn't see a lot of trailers because I was traveling.
Right.
So.
You can't see them all
right
instantly. I mean, you can if you have no life. I don't have much of a life, so
you weren't traveling though, so you were all set up for it.
There you go. The other one was for Strange New Worlds, which goes up at some point in time. And it was hilarious and compelling.
I love the fact that you said that because I did see some buzz about it, and the buzz wasn't great. People didn't like it. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, some people said, I don't know, it's weird. I don't understand it. Well, you know what? It's Star Trek. Get over it.
That's right. It's perfect Star Trek. It fits right in. The trailer is everywhere, folks. You'll if you haven't seen it and you care at all about this stuff, check it out. If it pisses you off, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to know. So again, next week we have this. Oh, I'm
so jealous of that woman. I got to tell you, she's got the perfect job.
She does. She was in San Diego. Hopefully, she is not ill. We don't want to hear that at all.
Oh God.
But she's not back yet. I think she went to LA. But look, I got a special milestone 50th episode.
Oh, look at that.
So we are going to be special next week.
And it's just 2 days after my birthday, and Keith and Keith rocks.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we got going on next week, folks. We also we're going to have a Thursday show next week, right? Thursday next week is
oh yes,
Mark Guggenheim. And the questions in my head just continue to go. I am currently reading his novel that's just getting released. It was on as a Prime member of Amazon, you get like 2 special free view. Like you can get a Kindle, 2 Kindle books a month, like preview books. So I got it for free. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know. It says you can get it, so I'm reading it, and let me tell you, holy shit, it's good. It's really good. If you can get a hold of it ahead of time, I don't know how I can get it to you because it's Amazon Kindle stuff, but I'm.
It is. I could tell you how, but that would be wrong. We were talking about Justice Society earlier. It's going to be hard to squeeze him into a mere 2 hours. He's had so much of a amazing career.
I know. It has been it was a bit of probably some of our most difficult negotiations, besides convincing freaking DC to let us talk to Tom King. But he's like, he has, you have to deal with assistants and, hey, what's the time? And he's in LA, and I'm like, well, we're gonna, he's like, she's good for this time. I'm like, well, we usually start at 8:30 and we go for about an hour and a half. for with our guests. And then they're like, okay, but then Mark's come back and said, yep, I'm in for it. He's ready to go. I'm excited. He is he's an incredible writer. And this book, I don't know that he's written any original novels before. I don't think he has. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating. It is moving. It is the language is complex and evoking. Oh, I'm loving it. So we're going to talk about that. We can talk about Law and Order. We can talk about the Arrowverse. We could talk about Carnival Row. We could talk about whatever. We can talk about Green Lantern, and we can talk about X-Men, and
we've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I met Mark, and we'll get to that. But I met Mark in Terrificon one year, and he was sitting next to Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. And when I saw him earlier this year, when we decided to do this, we geeked out on that moment at that time, because I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, you look familiar. I'm like, yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't have it was a little more Dan DiDio style, but you were sitting next to Jose, and I was wearing a Jose Luis Garcia Lopez Justice League shirt, like all just the heads in a 9-panel grid. And that's the shirt I was wearing. So then it's the most meta picture I ever have, because I have a picture of me standing next to Jose wearing that shirt.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. So
Jose is one of the absolute greatest artists in the comics medium, greatest storytellers in the comics medium, and also one of the absolute greatest human beings I've ever met.
If someone said anything other than that,
I'd kill them.
Well, they belong in hell. Like, they're obviously escaped from there, because he is a great person. But eventually, we'll get on that. But again, folks, we want to remind you to back the jump on Kickstarter. It's in the comments section for Keith Champagne's book that we talked about earlier with Keith. And if you haven't watched this, when we're done, go back, watch it. We came in early with our guests because they needed to leave, but we had a great conversation with Keith earlier, and Rich Stahnke as well. It was a lot of fun. That book is out there with so much new comic book stuff coming that we are going to talk about. And I haven't even touched. There's the new distillery book that's coming in October that Becky Cloonan is curating an all-woman horror anthology. I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah. There are some ideas that just work on 5 words.
I mean, she did just win an Eisner for a horror story.
Yeah.
Like it's like her 6th Eisner, but the short story Eisner went to Becky Cloonan for Kelpie, which is in the Eric Powell's book from last year.
Did not Bill Griffith get an Eisner for the Ernie Bushmiller book? He did. And also Trina got an Eisner for the yes. And I thought the book was older than that, but yes, 2 very well deserved.
It came out last year.
But I think that Griffith's work opened up a new lane in comics history. He's done it before, but not to the extent like this, where he merged artistic criticism with thoroughly investigated biography with full reference as a graphic biography story.
Yep.
And my God, that was brilliant.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we all know that there's the awards in any industry, in any entertainment industry, are arbitrary and rigged at the same time. And not you cannot say that because someone did or did not get an award, they're worthy or unworthy, because everyone's
Right.
making art, and art is incredibly
Completely.
difficult to be. It is a subjective thing, and you can't be objective about it, and it truly. But by the same token, a lot of the people who won make some great stuff. It's hard to argue with them. So
This is a good time to be a fan of this media.
yeah,
And I put it in the plural because we've been discussing it today in the plural,
absolutely.
as we usually do. But I have a hard time remembering when so many exciting, interesting things by so many exciting, interesting people are coming out in front of us. That's wonderful.
Yep, absolutely. So I think we're about at the end of our show. Again, I want to remind everybody, next Tuesday night at 8:00, we are going to be here. We're going to talk about whatever we want to talk about. But around 8:30, we're going to bring in Karen Green. And I have never had a conversation with Karen Green, and I'm super excited to do so.
Oh, I've had a few, and they're wonderful.
Yeah.
Memorable.
Everyone I've talked to and told them that she's going to be on is excited. I hope we have a big show. It is our 50th anniversary. I might try and plan something special here or there.
Well, if you mail me a cake, don't have the candles on it.
I won't. Well, you should have cake left over for your birthday anyway. So.
Oh, I should. Talk to Adrian.
All right, folks. We've had a great time tonight. We hope you did. Please come back next week. We want you to see this. It's going to be, if you have any interest in the medium of comics and its impact on society, on the world, you're going to want to hear our conversation with Karen Green next week.
Absolutely true. Thank you, folks, for being here. Without you guys, we'd just be farting in the wind.
Yep, absolutely. We will see you guys next time. So we'll see you later.
Bye.
This has been a production on the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you